C.
B.
C.
The importance of an early childhood education with a focus on literacy. Every parent wants to be able to send their child off to school. Learning to be literate from a young age has one of the biggest impacts on the future success of children. Children can be taught literacy through education, their family, or guardians. The problem is, children in the U.S. and around the world aren't receiving the education they need to become literate. One in 4 children in America grow up without learning how to read. In this video, we will uncover why children aren't receiving the education they need to become literate. We will uncover how gender, race, and class affect many children's access to a fair education. Being able to read helps the brain, which leads to success. There are micro solutions and macro solutions to solve the problem of neglecting to educate children with the most important aspect of education, literacy.
What does being literate mean to you?
Being literate means to me just keeping up a good vocabulary.
Why is it important to be literate?
It helps me stay on track and it keeps me up with my work and it just helps overall with my education.
How did you learn to be literate?
Just throughout my years of education and just when I was younger, my mom reading to me and my dad.
Literacy is the ability to be able to read and write.
What are some causes of children not being able to read and write?
Well, if they're not in a program, they're not going to be exposed to all those beginning things like just using a pencil, going from left to right. So if they're not being exposed to those learning tools, they're not going to be able to read.
Humans started to read, write, and communicate thousands of years ago. It's in our human nature to want to learn and expand our education. 1647 is the year that education took off in America. Every town with more than 50 families got an elementary school. In 1790, free public education was offered. 15 years later, in 1805, free public primary school was offered. In 1817, free public high schools were offered. In 1830, there were laws against teaching slaves to be literate. From 1865 to 1877, African Americans fought for education after slavery ended. In 1896, the court case, Plessy v. Ferguson, made segregation legal. In 1954, Brown v. Board of Education ended segregation in school. In 1974, school districts were created, leaving segregation. African Americans were left in the inner cities, while Caucasians moved to the suburbs. School segregation is still happening today, even if it looks unintentional. African Americans are still stuck in the inner city, while Caucasians are getting a better education in the suburbs. The children of the poor live a strikingly different life. They go to under-resourced schools with stressed teachers and go home to parents distracted by worry about how to pay the latest electricity bill. There are major connections of how poverty affects a child's literacy, which affects their future education. 40% of children living in poverty aren't prepared for primary school. Children, however, raised in poverty, often enter school without the language skills necessary for literacy development and are consequently less prepared for learning than are their more advantaged peers. Children in poverty can't afford books, so they aren't raised in an environment enriched in high knowledge of literacy. Micro solutions to help children in poverty to receive a better education are to have book drives in poor communities and to stress the importance of reading to kids.
Class isn't the only thing that affects a child's education. Race does also. By the end of 4th grade, African American, Hispanic, and low-income students are already 2 years behind grade level. By the time they reach the 12th grade, they are 4 years behind. The nation's lowest performing high schools produce 58% of all African American dropouts and 50% of all Hispanic dropouts, compared to 22% of all white dropouts. Socially, politically, historically, economically, and structurally, there are reasons why different races, ethnicities, and wealth affect a child's access to learn how to be literate. Discrimination and racism have left minorities stuck with poor education and very little chance of economic advance. Politically, ways have been created to set up schools, but they are not creating justice. They are hindering minorities from succeeding. For example, school districts. A macro solution could be to change laws about school choice.
Are any of these causes because of race, class, and gender for not receiving a good education?
It could be. I think people in different situations, like I said, if they don't have the money or the transportation or the way to get to us or find us, I think that inhibits them from getting their children in programs. Solutions is we have a scholarship program here which comes from the church endowment, so we are able to gift these children a place in our program so they are able to be here. We once upon a time, we don't do this anymore, we did offer help with transportation, so I know some schools still do that. And then the free initiative program, which any 4-year-old has access to free preschool and transportation. So in Iowa now that is another way to get these kids into programs.
Gender also affects a child's chance to education. At the international level, girls have been reported to have surpassed boys in both the 1991 International Association's Evaluation of Educational Achievement Reading and Literacy Study of 9 and 14-year-olds, and in the 2001 Program for International Student Assessment of 15-year-olds. Boys and girls engage in reading in different ways. A micro solution could be to try group reading and observe if it helps students. Lack of literacy isn't just a problem in the United States. Internationally and cross-culturally, children are negatively affected by lack of literacy, and health literacy was declared a national problem. One macro-level solution is being provided by Pope Francis and is called SCOLAS. SCOLAS is an organization trying to share resources and learning tools globally.
Paul's preschool. Why is early childhood education important?
Well, we believe in the early childhood world that the best time for children to learn is 0 to 5. So that's why we think it's extremely important, and that they receive social, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual guidance. And we just feel that from 0 to 5 is the time for them to soak it all up.
The ability to read and write affects our brains for the rest of our lives. By putting some of these micro and macro level solutions to good use, we can get every child the education they need to succeed.